Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet, and today, a little reflection on Australian maternal present. I'm not really big into American fast food. The one chain that I have historically frequented, I'm not sure if I'm going to continue to frequent following my last experience there, is Del Taco. And I like Del Taco primarily because they sell crinkle-cut French fries, which reminds me of countless takeaway shops in Australia. It's a good reason to like a burger place. There is one Del Taco left in the Bay Area, or at least within reasonable driving distance, and my wife and I headed out there on Saturday as a little, I don't know, let's just get Saturday started in the right kind of mood. We're going on a trip in the near future, and we thought this was going to be an interesting kind of adventure, also based on the fact that the weather has been particularly poor in this part of the world. We headed out to Del Taco and arrived there at a reasonable time with a sense of what we were going to order. My wife went and found a seat while I waited for the food to be presented to us. And through this experience of waiting, I heard the voice of an Australian mother. Now, my experience in Australia, and I don't necessarily want to narrate my family or these kind of things, but there's a bunch of really negative people in Australia that just have this ongoing negative commentary. And I reflect very heavily that this is probably a mirror to my own experience. You probably hear this even in Short Funk, that I will lament and go on about certain things in a particularly focused negative light. And unfortunately, this is just something that I'm going to have to reform from my life, and it comes typically from female influences in Australia. Truth be told, there are male influences in Australia that behave the same way, but it was an ongoing diatribe about the quality of American food, of high fructose corn syrup, of the fact that there was nothing on the menu at the Del Taco that was in any way healthy. And this narrative went on for some time. I texted my wife as I was waiting on the line to indicate that we probably should move as far away from these individuals as possible. There was an Australian mother, an Australian father, and two kids that were obviously being raised in this country. They had American accents, but these were their children. And this trip to the Del Taco was, I think, intentionally designed to educate them associated with the woes and the dietary concerns of living in the US. Now, truth be told, I used to eat a lot of sushi when I first came here. I did have distinct dietary problems with regards to certain aspects of American food, particularly the preservatives, but also to a lesser extent high fructose corn syrup. So I did understand on some level that if you've only eaten an Australian diet, the American diet is going to be particularly brutal to you. But the constant narration, the constant drone associated with the fact that everything was wrong and everything was horrible and everything just couldn't be tolerated really started to affect me even while I was waiting in the line to pick up the food. This thing represents a mirror to me. It represents the fact that there are certain things that were just constantly omnipresent at my time in Australia that I probably should discard from my life. I probably should remove myself from these kind of narratives and just accept that sometimes these things occur. Clearly, when you go to a Del Taco, you are not going to be getting the best possible food quality. But within that, one can reminisce associated with French fries that one ate 30 years ago in another country. And obviously, this Australian couple really didn't have the pitch correct. The husband spoke up occasionally, but mainly it was an ongoing narrative from the mother. When they were leaving, the children did pipe up and make some disgusting derogatory comments associated with what they were going to do in this Del Taco. At least there's elements, perhaps through the language, perhaps through the accent, that these children are going to grow up somewhat independently from their parents, because ultimately it's kind of ongoing, nasty, negative narrative. I don't know. I certainly left Australia in order to get away from this kind of stuff, and I have to apologise to the Short Funk listenership if they anyway feel that maybe some part of these Short Funks are tarnished by this particular perspective. I had planned prior to going to the Del Taco to talk a little bit about negative narratives and how I'm trying to wean myself off them wherever possible, particularly associated with the current elections in this country, and just move beyond the fact that there are no adequate candidates, and I'm no doubt going to be marketed continuously that participation in this election is the only civilized option. I think I'm going to draw a line under this whole thing, and in large part it was based on this Del Taco experience. The French fries were stale when I ate them. They tasted of old frozen potatoes. They weren't particularly fresh. They were reasonably cooked, but just the general stale potato taste. You see, this is what I've got to learn to embody. I probably won't be going back to Del Taco, but you people really don't need to know about the stale French fries. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.